According to the White House, about half of all Americans are now fully vaccinated against COVID-19, and that number is increasing, likely due to the highly contagious Delta variant. But about 90 million Americans are still on the fence. Vaccine hesitancy in Pennsylvania is about 14%. 8.5% of people in New Jersey are hesitant, and 13% in Delaware. These are figures that come from the U.S. Census Bureau. But now, more and more vaccine supporters are saying they've had enough, including New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, as he recently addressed anti-vax hecklers.
You've lost your minds. You are the ultimate knuckleheads, and because of what you are saying and standing for, people are losing their life.
I want to get on an airplane. I want to have a life again. Can we just do what we need to do to move on with this?
Even so, not everyone agrees, citing, among other things, concerns about side effects, safety, and lack of trust in the government. According to federal researchers, about 30% of people who have not been vaccinated say they're not really against the vaccine. They just feel they have legitimate concerns that are not being addressed.
This vaccine is still, to me, experimental.
It's my body, so I should be able to choose whether to take it or not.
With me now is bioethics professor Art Caplan. Caplan is founding head of the Division of Medical Ethics at NYU School of Medicine. Before that, he started the Center for Bioethics at the University of Pennsylvania. And today he's sharing his opinion on the rights of the unvaccinated. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Tracy, for having me.
You have really strong opinions about people who have chosen so far to not be vaccinated. Can you share those?
Well, I think they are morally out of whack. And I think the governor of New Jersey was right to yell at them and say, please, let's bring this COVID pandemic to an end. We hear a lot about my body, my choice. We hear a lot about it's my freedom and my liberty. That's not the right moral stance in a pandemic. The right moral stance in a pandemic is don't kill children, don't kill the elderly, don't kill the immunocompromised, get vaccinated, wear masks when necessary. Let's start to think about protecting lives, not just hearing rhetoric about liberty and freedom.
And you think you should go even further, we might go even further, by placing restrictions on people who are not vaccinated. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, look, we're not going to ever force with the vaccine police somebody to, sit down and undergo vaccination. You can choose not to do it. But if you do, you should be home, quarantined, or at minimum wearing a mask. And if you're not doing those things, I think you should be fined. I think it's time to put some penalties in place for bad, irresponsible, selfish behavior. And I'd go further. If I could prove that you made my child sick and put him in the hospital, or my grandmom, then I think you should be liable and ought to be sued, just like we would if you didn't put a fence around your pool, cover your well, or you were driving around at night without headlights.
Those are strong words. Do the unvaccinated have any rights, in your opinion?
They have a right not to take the vaccine if they choose, but they have to think then about impact on others. If you look at the policy of honoring what the unvaccinated want, Florida, Louisiana, numbers 2 and 4 in the world in places that would be on a list of no visits because they're out of control. Those policies of worrying about the unvaccinated are leading us to just go on and on with this pandemic. And you just look at the map of where the hospitals are being overwhelmed with patients, where COVID's out of control. It's the unvaccinated and indulging them in the South that continues to cause us problems.
You said it in a recent opinion piece that we can no longer err on the side of liberty. But then there are people who say, but that's what we're about. That's what our country is about.
Well, it's true. We are about liberty and we are about freedom, but they have responsibilities and they have duties. Nobody has the liberty to do anything they want at any time. That's like a 7th grade understanding of liberty. You can't drive on the wrong side of the road. You can't go out and go into somebody else's house and eat their food because you're hungry. We have a whole slew of laws that protect people from bad choices by others. That's what we've got to be thinking about. We're still in a pandemic. I don't want to be in this situation for another year. It's time to get tough. It's time to try and bring this thing under control. And until we start worrying about the rights of the vaccinated, the rights of the masked, the need to protect people from protection, this is just going to go on and on.
But can we understand that there are groups that may have legitimate reason to be wary of vaccines?
I don't buy the wary of vaccine argument. You know, these vaccines for COVID have been around since they began testing them, and now in mass distribution. In the hundreds and hundreds of millions of people, we've seen a few tiny side effects, no more than you get with, well-accepted drugs. The efficacy for keeping you out of the hospital and preventing you from being dead is remarkable. We never had such powerful vaccines. They're not experimental. That's a technical term. They're proven and established, and they're going to get licensed within a few weeks. So these worries somehow that, I can't trust these vaccines. What you can't trust is the COVID virus. If that gets you, that's going to be a lot worse than worrying about vaccine side effects.
Let's talk about vaccine passports. New York City has them. The Biden administration insists there will not be a national vaccine passport. A few governors and state legislatures have actually banned them. What's your opinion?
We need them. You need to have some way to prove that you're vaccinated so you can go into public restaurants, get into gyms, go to concerts, go to theater, resume life. I don't know why the Biden administration won't give us a simple card that says I'm vaccinated. They seem to somehow be yielding to political pressure that people don't want to have to carry that. Look, at the end of the day, let's reward good behavior. Let's have a vaccine passport. And if anybody thinks they're going to travel overseas, work overseas, spend some time as a student overseas, if you don't have a vaccine passport in place from the U.S., you're not going anywhere. Those countries want them.
What about as companies start to talk about bringing people back, mandating your employees have the vaccine? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, you can tell I'm strongly pro-vaccination and I'm strongly pro-masking when you need to do that, say in schools, when you're around a lot of people who can't vaccinate, kids. I don't think in that particular workplace we want to lock up 30, 35 kids in a room every day who can't be vaccinated because the vaccine isn't approved for them, and expose them to all kinds of people to get there and be there. So we've got to really say, yeah, that's a must vaccinate zone for teachers, for people who work there. Other employers, if you're on a cruise ship or running a cruise ship line, I think you want to say that you vaccinated. The outbreaks have been bad. It's ruining the industry. At the end of the day, employers have to think about worker safety. That's their first job. And next, customer safety. And I'm applauding the gyms and the restaurants, other venues that are starting to say, you've got to show me some proof of vaccination or a recent COVID test that's negative to get in here.
Before we start mandating and having consequences for not being vaccinated, do we still have any room to convince those who don't believe, or has that time passed?
Well, look, I think we've been trying to persuade people. I think we've been trying even to incentivize people. Remember all those programs with the free beers and the free meals and the lotteries that people could enter, and that moved a few, but the carrots haven't worked particularly well. I'm not ready to give up on them. I think we should still keep trying. Persuasion's great. But again, in a plague with things out of control, with winter coming, with people talking about the need for boosters, boy, I think it's time to decide, you know what, we've had enough of this. Let's put our moral force on the side of doing the right thing and getting this under control.
Bioethics professor Art Caplan. Art, thanks so much, as always, for being with us.
Hey, thanks, Tracy.